Hence, our goal is to broaden our understanding, enlighten thoughtful discussions, and hear diverse perspectives on the policy question that matters for gender equality and social protection as well. So let's get started. To open our debate, I invite the first speaker from the supporting side, Mashwil Bashar from Independent University, Bangladesh, in favor of the motion. Mashwil, the floor is yours.
Sure, I'm extremely sorry. Our first speaker is Noshin Faiza.
Okay. Sorry. So I invite the first speaker from Independent University, Bangladesh, Naushin Faiza, to continue the argument in favor of the motion. Naushin, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon. I apologize, first of all. There might be some background noise behind because we are in the university and there's a sports going on behind. So I cordially apologize at first. So without further delay, I'm going to start my speech. Today, the proposition stands strongly in favor of the motion because it is not only economic reform, but a social correction, a gender justice commitment, and an investment in the future of our country. The topic is women's unpaid household activities, especially childcare and elder care, create huge value, yet these are invisible in GDP and ignored policy. Today, we will explain why this value must finally be counted and how governments can compensate women in realistic and affordable way. So to start with, why should unpaid care work be counted in GDP? Let's begin by understanding GDP the way Paul Samuelson defined it. Well, GDP is the market value of all final goods and services produced in the economy. This means if a woman cooks for her family, it's not counted in the GDP. If she cooks in a restaurant, then it counts in the GDP. If she cares for her children, that's not counted in the GDP. If a paid nanny does it, then it counted in the GDP. Same task, same output, but one is invisible because the worker is the woman at home. Well, how it would be included in GDP? If the state compensates household care work, that payment become a market transaction, just like paying a caregiver, a nanny, or a domestic worker. So the value of childcare, elder care, cleaning, food preparation, once compensated, would be counted as a service sector contribution in GDP. This corrects a major statistical gap. Well, if we look at UN Women's data, UN Women estimates that if unpaid care were valued, it would be equal to 10 to 14% of national GDP in many countries. This means we are undercounting a massive portion of real production. Well, why does recognition matter for the economy? Investing in human capital. If we think about good childcare development, due to this, we will get smarter children, healthier children, more productive future workers. Good elder care reduces pressure on the hospitals and improves the well-being of vulnerable groups. So while unpaid care is invisible today in GDP, it directly increases tomorrow's GDP by building human capital. Again, why does this matter for social justice and gender equality? Well, women gain freedom and decision-making power in this if we introduce this. When women receive compensation, even small amounts they gain, due to this, they gain economic independence, greater voice in the household decision, reduced dependency on male earners, low risk of being treated as a burden. This directly advances SDG 5, which is gender equality. Then comes to poverty reduction. Well, women invest most of their earning in like children's nutrition, education, health, and household well-being. So paying women for care for this lifts entire families. I mean, this lifts the luck of the entire family by reducing the poverty. Again, provide both tangible and intangible compensation. Compensation shouldn't be only money. It should be support women mentally and emotionally. If we talk about the tangible compensation, the monthly security money or allowance, we can consider the sanitary napkins that most of the women in the village area, in the rural areas, they are deprived of. They are still going through the traditional ways of doing this dealing with these monthly problems. Basic hygiene product, childcare supplies, elderly care support materials. This reduces daily burden and supports women's physical well-being. And then if we talk about intangible compensation, the state should promote a cultural shift by arranging workshops for men, teaching them how to respect women's work, spreading awareness that household work is valuable labor, creating a sense of safety, dignity for women, building programs that encourage equal division of household tasks. These intangible supports change mindset and reduce social dependency in the long run. Then again, how can developing country implement this policy? This is a huge question. We suppose a simple, perhaps realistic plan here. Use social protection system here. Rather than paying full salary, the state can use existing social protection tool like caregiver allowance, pension, conditional cash transfer, special support for mothers and elderly caregivers. This is affordable and fits within current budgets. Then if we talk about partnerships, I mean, the partnerships reduces costs. The government doesn't have this, the government don't have to do this alone, right? They can make it they can be partners with NGOs, international donors like UN Women, ILO, UNDP, World Bank, and etc. They can provide funding, technical support, also monitoring and the evaluation. This makes the program sustainable and realistic. Then we can start with the pilot programs. For example, in Kurigram. Kurigram is a perfect testing ground because it has high poverty, low cost of living, strong NGO presence, high share of women performing unpaid care work. A pilot program allows government to test, adjust, and scale based on evidence. Later, if we talk about compensation based on cost of living, different districts have different expenses, we know. So we propose smaller payments for low-cost rural districts and slightly higher payments for high-cost urban areas. This ensures fairness and efficient use of the national budget. Then comes to the final point, start small and expand gradually. Step 1. Start with small payment, for example, 800 to 1200 taka per month. Step 2, observe impacts on children, elderly care, and women's empowerment. Expand to more distinct if the pilot program is successful. And finally, integrate into national social security budgeting if these are successful. Well, this phased plan keeps the programs affordable and politically acceptable. And to conclude with, honorable judges, this policy is not charity, it's a recognition, it's justice, it's economic common sense. By counting women's unfazed household works, activities in GDP, and compensating them through both tangible and intangible support, we correct a gender bias in GDP, invest in human capital, reduce poverty, empower women, transform social attitudes, and move closer to SDG 5. For all these reasons, the proposition proudly supports the motion. Thank you very much. I'll end my speech here. Once again, thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you so much for your insightful presentation from IUB. So now moving to the opposing side, I invite the first speaker from the opposing team, Bangladesh University of Professionals, Muhammad Fatima bint Alam Jim, to present her arguments against the motion. Jim, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. There is a mistake. Yeah, actually, I'm a second speaker. Can you, sir, please mention our another speaker to here? Abu Abdullah Papel
Okay.
is a first speaker. Thank
Okay.
you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I invite the second speaker from BUP, Abu Yusuf Abdullah, to present his arguments. Yusuf, the floor is yours.
Yes. Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Rapid, for giving me the floor here. Our supporting team already mentioned some of the alternatives, and before I'm coming with the alternatives, I want to focus on the main point of our today's discussion. What is GDP actually mean? So let me start with a small story that let's assume that we have a young woman in a small village in our country. She wakes up at dawn and till evening works. He participates in many tasks like cooking, cleaning, or caring for children in home, and then elderly parents. Her works are priceless. We have no doubt of that. But if we want to measure in GDP, if we want to measure it in GDP, there is a question arises. What actually GDP means? What GDP mean to measure? GDP stands for gross domestic product. It measures the total value of goods and services produced and sold in the market within a country. GDP measures goods and services with market prices. It is the foundation of economic growth analysis, productivity measurement, and global comparison. So, what about the household care work? Though they are essential, but they do not involve any kind of market transaction. If Bangladesh unilaterally wants to change the GDP definition, our growth figures lose international credibility, affecting the investment rating and IMF and World Bank assessment. GDP is designed to capture the market activity, not the unpaid social contribution. So the question is, should a metric designed for production become a welfare indicator? Secondly, there's an issue there's an issue with the measurement problem. If we want to measure the unpaid care, for example, if we want to price the unpaid activities of household like cooking, cleaning, caring of children, so how will you measure it? According to Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics in Time Survey 2021, women spend almost 3.40 hours a day in household activities. On the other hand, men spend almost 0.47 hours a day. So if we want to measure them in a monetary value, it becomes fragile because we cannot set a single measurement method for this. For example, if you want to go with the opportunity cost approach, it has 148 BDT per day. On the other hand, if you want to replacement cost approach for hiring someone based on their specialty, it has different values we see. So some same activities, different variants we can see in the valuation. So which is purely based on methodology. So we cannot measure their activities properly, and evaluation will be improper. So the question is, how will you measure it? But if we somehow we are able to measure the total activities of their household, let's assume it is almost I believe that 40 to 80% of the GDP it will be covered. But if we want to add it in GDP will rise by 14 to 15%, which is inflate the total GDP, because we know that if GDP changes, it impact the income, it impact the unemployment, it impact the different fiscal level. So if we want to add the household activities in the GDP, it will change the GDP, but it was if in practical it will change nothing. So there is a question that are we really want to add it to GDP, because it already changing the definition of GDP. And there's another issue. This will open the doors for political manipulation of GDP number. There is the issue. And if we somehow manage to measure it, let's consider we are able to measure it, add it to GDP. So there is another issue of compensate, how government will compensate these activities. Already supporting team mentioned that they want to include it in existing social safety net programs. tools to compensate the whole criteria. In existing social protection spending for Bangladesh government, which is almost 2.5% of the total GDP. Let's assume we want to compensate all the women here, which is estimated to be 30 million women qualify for this. So let's assume we want to pay 1,500 a month every woman, which is annually cost 54,000 crore, and government has to compensate it from the government spending, so government budget, which is fiscally impossible without any massive taxes or cutting the essential services. And in Bangladesh, tax to GDP ratio is already poor. Reform has failed. So if we want to compensate it from government budget, so it will risk bankrupting the state for the policy, and but only for the sound reasonable policy. But the question is is it really important to add it in GDP in spite of everything? Now come to the now somehow we measure that we will manage to manage the budget from our spendings. Now, even if we could afford it, paying women for household work would reinforce gender inequality. Let me explain how. For example, it will give incentives women for household activities. That means women will get discouraged to go outside for work. It will raise another question of male and women. It will reduce the female and women ratio in the existing labor market, which is already under question. So, and there are another alternative. There is another point is point of moral hazard. I mean, actually, what are the unpaid works for? The women are doing this not for any kind of incentives or monetary valuation. They're doing it for only for their moral standpoints. So when they are getting paid for that, their standpoint, their moral standpoint are getting under question. So these are the some of the well-mentioned limitations of these existing policies. So yes, if we consider the beginning of the story, a mother who works from dawn to evening and participate all the household activities like caring child and other activities. So yes, a mother in our story deserves respect, recognition, and support, but not through GDP distortion or unsustainable cash transfer. Instead, Bangladesh should stay targeted social protection. Bangladesh can provide social protection who need them, not everyone who is participating in the household activities. Bangladesh need to fight the poverty and empower the women. If we if we reverse our whole motive, then there is no point of making it relatable to this. So not so Bangladesh should target this should stay in the target social programs and then fight the poverty and empower women, not trap them in a domestic roles. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yusuf, for that clear and thoughtful response. We now return to the opposing team from IUB. I invite our second speaker, Mashwil Bashar, to continue the argument in favor of the motion. Mashwil, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, honorable judges and my honorable opponents. As the second speaker of the supporting team, my responsibility today is to show how our proposal is realistic, affordable, and achievable for our country like Bangladesh. I will explain the mechanism, the economic reasoning, and the response to the opposition's arguments. So let's begin with the most important part. So we are going to take a function of recognition, the unpaid work, that before we are going to talk about the money and policies, we must understand how unpaid work is measured. A time use survey records exactly how many hours people spend on cooking, cleaning, washing, childcare, elderly care, and household management, and etc. etc. There was a several global evidence like countries like UK, Mexico, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and many countries use time use service regularly. UK found that unpaid work equals to 56% of their GDP. Australia found that about 40 to 50% of their GDP is unpaid work. And Mexico also found that 22 to 24% of GDP is basically unpaid work. So also, Bangladesh has its own evidence. Bangladesh conducted a first national time use service in 2021 by BBS, where they found that Bangladeshi women performed 12.5 hours of unpaid work daily and men performed about 3.7 hours. This proves that two things, that the unpaid care load on women is massive, and Bangladesh is already has the mechanism of the measure it. So this is not a theory. This is already happening in our country. So let's talk about the step by step of the mechanism of time use survey. So the countries use usually 3 step in global model. First step is a time use survey, which already done in Bangladesh, and they collect hours of unpaid works nationwide. Step 2 is assigned monetary value. Basically, this call is replacement cost method, where price each task using the market wage of a cook, a domestic worker, a babysitter, a elderly caregiver. If a hired worker's labor counts in GDP, it's identical labor of the mother or daughter. Step 3 is to create a household satellite accounts. So this is extremely important. We don't change the GDP formula. We simply create a separate and official account showing the monetary value of the unpaid work, and this avoids the double counting and keeps GDP internationally comparable. So this is exactly how UK, Mexico, and Australia do it. So this is the mechanism, and Bangladesh is already invest in social protection. Opposition might say that Bangladesh is a poor country, but here's the fact that Bangladesh already spends 2.5% of their GDP on social protection, including old age allocations, widow allocation, old age allowance, widow allowances, and disability and maternity benefits, and etc. etc. So this means that Bangladesh already supports the vulnerable groups. So adding caregiver is not a burden; it is an expansion of the existing system. So we have, and we also have the NID database, digital payment methods, which basically showing us that our infrastructure is already exist. So then we are going for a small start, like we are not proposing to pay all housewives. Our plan is small, safe, and financially responsible. So phase 1, we're trying to conduct a pilot programs where which maybe start in one city or a few pujalas, where which is basically evaluated effectiveness for 1 to 2 years, and in phase 2 we're target only those who need help most. Probably a single mothers, women caring for disabled family members, and elderly caregivers. So this keeps the program affordable and impactful. In phase 3, when our budget will grow, data improves, results are proven over most of 5 to 10 years, we are gradually expand this in national. So this model is responsible, measurable, and achievable. So international are also our international partners are ready to support Bangladesh. So basically, this is one of our strongest evidence that global investors are considering gender equality as a economic indicator. So organizations like UN Women, World Bank, UNDP, ILO, ADP are funding for gender budgeting, childcare development, social protection reform. So Bangladesh will not pay for this, pay for everything alone. So global organizations already want to help us. So economic, and they also have the economic benefits. So Bangladesh female labor participation is only 36% compared to 80% for men. So because unpaid work blocks women for taking paid jobs. So if we support caregivers, women gain free times, more women join to the workforce, household income rises, poverty will decreases, and tax revenues will be increases. So this is not a cost, this is the economic investment. So if it will also reduces the future government expenditure. If children and elderly people get a proper support, the government saves money on healthcare cost, emergency medical services, long-term disability cares, mental health issues. So this allows the government to redirect funds into the infrastructure sector like infrastructure, education, industry, development sectors, which is directly rise the GDP. So our proposal does not change the GDP formula. Instead of it adds the satellite accounts that make GDP more accurate, and the real impact on GDP is indicated but powerful. When caregivers are supported, more women can join the labor force, increasing the production, income, and national output. So investment in childcare and elderly care reduce the future government cost and create a new jobs. So overall, recognizing the unpaid work leads to the stronger economic growth and a higher GDP. Thank you so much for giving me the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marshall, for your excellent insights. So now I invite the second speaker from BUP, Muhammad Fatima bint Alam Jim, to present the final set of arguments from the opposing side. So, Jim, the
Thank
floor
you,
is
sir.
yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for giving me this floor. Basically, today's debate, actually, I am saying my opposing team are talking about on the opposition side. Our motion, what was our motion? Our motion was women's work should be counted in GDP and should be compensated through the social safety nets. Actually, I think my opposition team has not read it very properly because this motion, because it was the motion where we wanted to talk about that should we count it in GDP or not. Yes, we agree that social work, women work, motherly work, both are important. But how we will calculate it? My opposition team were talking about how they will calculate the GDP system, how they're calculating the measurement of the mother work and the social work satellite system. Yes, we agree about it. But my opposing team have never ever talked about that how they will compensate through the social accounts and social safety net programs, because they're talking about the elderly cares in and they're not trying to paying the money to the elderly people and women who are staying in the home. They're talking about the 36% of labor participation rate, which is right. But they're talking about the caregivers. Yes, we are talking about this. We are talking about really this. Jay, we need to work on the more the caregiver system, not to include in the GDP system. And they have not talked about the how they will measurement the money and how will they measure the occupation, how will measure the care, how will measure the no, they didn't talk about it. This is not talkable and this is not included in GDP in this perspective. But actually, I want to say it again. My opposing team is talking about our own perspective because this is the opposition team has been talked about. So I want to share my some perspective. How this caregiving system is more important if they try to give all the women, how all the women to the compensation system and all the women to staying at a home. It could be the disaster. We already have the Czech Republic session where they took the policy where they gave the incentive of the cash intensive incentives. Because of that, they have already been suffered, and after that, it also been seen the compensation has not worked properly. The care work, children care, and the elderly care has important here. We live in Bangladesh, and for Bangladeshi women, and it's necessary to include in work because our 36% of labor participation rate, we need to work on our participation rate higher, because in garment system, in garment industry where we're talking, there is most of the women. If the women have the caregiving system, the more childcare system is more important, then they will work on more on their productive work. For women and elderly people, we have the alternatives that we are talking about. We have to given the more importance on the child care and the more importance on the elderly people, so that they are contributing in our society, as well as the women in the industry can work. Basically, we're not talking about that all of the women need to be compensated through their care works. No, if we want to compensate the all women through the cash flow and the incentives, there can be a moral hazard system. My opponents has not been talking about this because if we compensate the cash flow system, what will happen? Because motherly care is intangible thing, and when they will compensate because of the child care and the elderly care people, they will think that they are obliged. They're obliged because of that. They're giving the money. There will be moral hazard system to the people and to the society, and most of the people in country and most of the people other system where they will take the advantage of this, and they will take the elderly people solely in the family so that they can uh, so that they can get the incentive that will create the moral hazard system more dangerous way. So this is the my point I'm talking about. Counting in the GDP is not in a sense that how the women care work is contributing. She counted in a GDP to make the people's life, make the women's life, make the children's life, make the elderly people life more easier by giving them the more incentive on the productive way, not the cash flow way, by keeping them in the labor production, and the labor production that will affect them more. So the question, the motion is, the women work should be counted in GDP and compensated through the social system. Directly concluding in GDP is not an option, but we have to talk about the alternatives where we can really improvise our women's life and another people's life, where we will also care about the care economy, not just the only economy. So that's from all of the opposition side. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this floor again, and thank you so much, my teammates.
Thank you so much. It was a nice structured discussion, thoughtful discussion, and really I thank to both teams. Now we turn to our distinguished panelist, Professor Salma Akhtar from the University of Dhaka, who will basically help us distill, interpret, and reflect on the broader sociological and policy implications for today's discussion. Ma'am, we look forward to your reflections. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So first of all, I'd like to thank Rapid for actually organizing such a wonderful discussion, a policy debate on a very crucial issue at this moment regarding women's household activities, especially caring for children and the elderly should be counted in the GDP, and the state should compensate them through social protection programs. The team supporting the idea is Independent University Bangladesh, and Bangladesh University of Professional is actually opposing the idea. I love to say that I actually enjoyed the presentation a lot, because you have taken a very, I should say, very clear-cut stand about why it should be included in the GDP and why it shouldn't be. So the team who supported, they were talking about that actually women's participation in labor force is badly influenced by and negatively influenced by women's caregiver role, domestic household activities, taking care of children and elderly. And that is not actually counted in the GDP. That is not actually counted in any economic form, any economic return. And the opposition was, and they were mentioning how to do that. I think there was one wonderful idea of starting with a sort of case study, a pilot survey with women with a very marginalized groups, or women who have like children, disabled children, or very elderly people to take care of. And we know that in Bangladesh now, actually, women's participation, though this is 36%, 50% around in recent time, but that's actually fluctuating a lot due to their caregiver role. So the issue is there is no debate about whether the caregiver role is actually negatively influencing women's participation in the labor force. That surely is. The issue is whether that could be compensated economically. So the team who talked about in a positive manner, they were actually talking that we should start with a kind of a pilot and then obviously can replicate from that. And the opposition was saying if we convert into the money, that would be a huge amount of money, and the procedure of that, including in the social safety net, which is already large, would be a difficult thing. I think obviously this is a very complicated issue. If we think about this from a social point of view, this is a moral issue, as one of the participants mentioned, that why should we burden actually the household women members to have to take care of this? We know that our life expectancy has gone up. It's around 74 for women and 71 for men. And we have seen significantly that almost 66% of the caregiver are within the age limit of 49%. So a very young group who are actually the productive force in the labor market. So obviously there is a huge problematic debate, but it is also important to acknowledge women are giving this service to the family. So that should not go unnoticed. That should be included in the both in the GDP as well as in the social recognition. And there was a debate, I can remember, Professor Saima was last year, Saima Bidisha was actually talking about this, how to incorporate that in the GDP. So I congratulate both of the team. You have wonderful ideas in favor of your stand. And I think we should further think about that whether we should go for a substitute caregiver economy service, or whether we should actually acknowledge the women who are staying at home and taking the double burden, triple burden at home, how to compensate that. But I believe we have to find a way out from this. And thank you all for presenting wonderful arguments and some thoughtful ideas, as well as some supporting documents. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Professor Salma, for your insightful reflections. So now I want to open up the floor for the audience. If anybody have any questions or comments or want to add anything to today's topic. So if anybody is there to comment on or anything. Okay, I think nobody's there. Okay, just to summarize, that I enjoyed a lot basically the today's topic and the argument you placed, because you have put so many things like this is actually how the policy debate should be, because still there are a lot of arguments, controversies are going on related to these topics, and you put those complex questions in your discussion. So if I summarize the key themes that today emerged, where supporting team basically emphasized the economic invisibility of women's unpaid care work. They highlighted the need for recognition, and they also highlight the importance of the building human capital. And then they placed their idea how actually the coverage can go for the social protection aspect. So they shared like small and gradual increasing of targeted social protection system. Then we talk about long-term benefits from the human capital development. On the other hand, we saw that the opposing team raised some critical concerns about measurement challenges, then fiscal feasibility. Since in Bangladesh, the tax GDP ratio is quite low. So yeah, they raised this concern. Then they also raised the risks of misclassification and miscalculation of GDP accounting, risks of political manipulation, and they also talk about the fiscal barriers for compensation and also the moral hazards. So a lot of things actually came in today's discussion. So together, the arguments reveal that unpaid care is not just a domestic issue, it is a development issue, it's a gender issue, and a policy issue. So I would say thank you so much to everyone who actually contributed, and today's policy debate actually showcased that what we aim for at Rapid, basically. So youth-led analytical thinking, constructive dialogue, and bold ideas that push us to reimagine the policy options. So a sincere thank you again to our dynamic teams from IUB and BUP, our respected panelist, Professor Salma Akhtar, and all our participants here on Zoom and watching live on Facebook. So it has been a pleasure moderating this session. And with that, we formally conclude today's rapid policy debate. And thank you all for joining, and we look forward to seeing. Okay. Oh, just to add, we have with us Professor Dr. Mohammad Abu Yusuf, sir, Executive Director of Rapid. So we are grateful to have him. So I want to just listen from him a few minutes about this topic and discussion.
No,
Sir,
thank
over to you.
you, Zahid, for moderating the policy debate, and grateful to Salma Appa, as always, she is very generous and supportive to Rapid, and also supportive to students, pro-student teacher known as Dhaka University. Very good researcher, and I must appreciate the contribution you have made from both BUP and Bangladesh BUP and IUB participants. The topic itself is a very, for the student of economics, I am also a student of economics. So very interesting topic. If you look at the UN or different policy papers, that if we include women contribution in GDP, so current GDP would be much higher than what it has. So every effort, every work has its own value. So in terms of economic, if we are talking about opportunity cost terms, so we need to value the contribution, whether it is domestic or child caring or rearing, whatever it is. This value should be included in the GDP. So we have listened the supportive and opposing argument very nicely. I think our audience will be enormously benefited from this, and from on behalf of Rapid, I would like to congratulate all of you. Hope we will keep in touch for any research purpose or any. And if you are most welcome to visit our website, Rapid website. We mostly focus on international trade issues, policy issues, social protection issues, and many more issues. Today we had a seminar with the support from FES Germany, that beyond jobless growth, that is the connection between growth and employment creation, which is really important topic. So very frequently we are organizing, different policy dialogue and evidence-based analysis on social protection issues, international trade issues. So I welcome you to be part of Rapid initiative, and if you have any interest, you're most welcome to keep in touch with us. Thank you so much. And Jai, thank you for moderating this session. Today we miss Dr. Din Islam, who usually, moderate this session. He is now on a official trip to BARD with the British FCDO event, attending there. But Jahid, thank you so much for doing
Thank,
this.
thank you so much, sir, for your insightful discussion, and thank you so much again, participants. With that, we formally conclude today's rapid policy debate, and thank you all for joining, and we look forward to seeing you again in our upcoming events. Assalamu alaikum and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.